Hi friends, this is me Harshita Handal here. So in this video, let's learn about the important neurocutaneous syndrome. So I'll be covering about the four main topics, that is neurofibromatosis, tuberous sclerosis, Sturge-Weber syndrome, and von Hippel-Lindau syndrome. Coming to the first one, neurofibromatosis, it has an autosomal dominant inheritance. So there are two types of neurofibromatosis, that is NF1 and NF2. In NF1, it has the characteristic features of cephalate spots, axillary or inguinal freckling, iris leaf nodules, and neurofibroma and optic glioma. So this is not opioid, this is optic glioma. Then optic glioma, then sphenoid dysplasia, that is referred with a bare orbit sign radiologically. So we should know that the cephalate spot has the characteristic features of it should have a smooth margin, and it should be measuring each of it should be measuring more than 1.5 centimeter, and it should be more than 6 in number. So coming to neurofibroma, it should be more than or equal to 2 neurofibroma, or if at all it is a plexiform neuroma, then it can also be considered if it is one plexiform neuroma. So these are the characteristic features of the neurofibromatosis 1. Coming to the next one, that is NF2. NF2 is actually a misnomer because it doesn't have neurofibromas only in it. So the characteristics of NF2 can be remembered as MS-ME. So MS-MME. M is meningioma, S is schwannoma, then M is multiple, and ependymoma, Merlin protein defect, then again E is ependymoma, that is glioma. So the schwannoma is bilateral, and the most common nerve involved is inferior vestibular nerve. So this is NF2. NF1 and NF2, you should remember the chromosome associated with it. So NF1 is chromosome 17, NF2 is 22. NF1 is associated with neurofibromin protein, NF2 is with the Merlin. NF1 is the most prevalent one, and NF2 is the less common variant. So this is about the neurofibromatosis. Coming to the next neurocutaneous syndrome, tuberous sclerosis. Tuberous. So tuberous itself means it is hamartoma, that is a benign tumor. So that benign tumors are the multiple sites in the body. So there is a lesion with a TSC, tumor suppressor gene, and the TSC1 and TSC2. Again, the TSC1 is associated with hamartin, and 2 is associated with tuberin. So here we learnt 1 is associated with neurofibromin, 2 is associated with the Merlin. So now we are learning that 1 is associated with hamartin and TSC2 is associated with the tuberin. So we should also remember the chromosome is associated with it. So you should remember, you can remember this way, like 1 is an odd number, the next odd number is 3, you should square that odd number, 3 square is 9, so 9 chromosome. 2 is the even number, so the next even number is 4, so square that even number, 4 square is 16. So this is one of the method which you may if you like, you can use it. So TSC1 is associated with the 9 chromosome, TSC2 is associated with the 16 chromosomes, and the tuberous sclerosis has a triad, that is walk triad, that is epiloia. Epi means epilepsy, low IQ, and A is adenoma sebaceum. And in this tuberous sclerosis, there are 3 A's and 3 S. So what are these 3 A's and 3 S are? 3A, adenoma sebaceum, Ashleaf macules, angiomyolipoma. So these are the 3 A's. Adenoma sebaceum is the facial angiofibromas, and Ashleaf macules are the macules, the most common site being the trunk. Then angiomyolipoma, the name itself suggests it is lipoma, that is fat in it. So only it is hyperechoic in USG, and in CT it has a negative HU value. So this is about the 3 A's. Coming to the 3 S, Sjagren patch. So patch is one that is palpable, and the location being, most common location being the lumbosacral region. And one more S is subependymal nodules. So these nodules, upon aging, they can have calcium deposits in it. And subependymal giant cell astrocytoma. So 3 A's, 3 S, and now the other features are the Koinen tumor, also known as periungual fibroma. These are periungual lesions, that is adjacent to the nails. These are the fibromas that are occurring. And the tuberous sclerosis, as I previously mentioned, it is hamartomas. So hematomas at the various sites. It can be retinal hematoma, glioneural hematoma, cardiac rhabdomyoma, not just cardia, adjacent to that lungs will be there. There can be lymphangioliomatosis in the lung, and this angiomyoma can be in the kidney, adrenals, pancreas, liver, at multiple sites. So this is about the tuberous sclerosis, and this tuberous sclerosis patients have increased lifetime cancer risk, and that should be kept in mind. So one more thing is that angiomyolipoma, which I mentioned, is benign in nature, but however we should be very cautious regarding that, because it can put pressure on the kidney, and it can bleed spontaneously. So it can end up in complication even though it is a benign. So this is about the tuberous sclerosis. Next neurocutaneous syndrome is Sturge-Weber syndrome. Sturge-Weber syndrome, it is a congenital neurocutaneous syndrome, and other name of Sturge-Weber is encephalo-trigeminal angiomatosis. That is encephalo, brain is involved, trigeminal, that is the fifth cranial nerve, angiomatosis, so vascular malformation. So this is the vascular malformation that typically results in the area that is brain and also the fifth nerve innervating areas of the face. So there is too many capillaries in the meninges, that is ipsilateral leptomeningeal angiomatosis, and also in the face area innervated by the fifth cranial nerve, that is the forehead, upper eyelid, port wine stain. That port wine nevus is characteristic of the Sturge-Weber syndrome. So we should know that actually the normal individual at the 6th week of the intrauterine life, vascular plexus are formed. So the gene associated with it is GNAQ. In the 9th week of intrauterine life, this GNAQ gene stops getting expression. So whenever this GNAQ stops its expression, there is vascular regression. So vascular plexus regresses. But however, in this Sturge-Weber syndrome, there is sporadic mutations of the GNAQ gene. Therefore, they continue to express even after the 9th week. So the vascular plexus are not regressing only. So there will be excess of capillaries in the tissue from the ectoderm. So only there are capillaries high in the brain, eye, and skin on the face in this individual. If this mutation occurs early in the intrauterine life, the more chances of the bilateral region being involved will be present. If the mutation is in late intrauterine life, mostly it would be an incomplete one affecting only the skin or only the brain, or it would be a unilateral lesion. Sturge-Weber syndrome is a congenital one. However, the good point is it is not associated with the increased risk of true brain tumors. However, this leptomeningeal angioma which is formed can impair the blood flow. So there can be brain ischemia following which there can be a brain atrophy, and calcium deposits can occur. And in the eye, due to this multiple malformations of the vascular plexus, there can be pooling of the blood, obstructions of the venous outflow, and problem with the trabecular network that can be presented as congenital trabeculodysgenesis, and the baby can have the glaucoma. And radiologically, one important point that you should remember regarding the Sturge-Weber is tram track pattern. So this is about the Sturge-Weber. Coming to the last one, that is the VHL. It is also autosomal dominant pattern of inheritance, and it is with chromosome 3. And VHL gene, whenever there is a problem with the VHL gene, there will be increased hypoxic inducible factor HIF. So whenever there is increased HIF, there is increased growth factor like PDGF, VEGF, and these growth factor will promote the tumor formation, increase the risk of tumor formation. So this is what will happen in a VHL. And the most common thing that is present in VHL is hemangioblastoma. Hemangioblastoma can be at various sites, the retina, brain, spinal cord, cerebellum, etc. So based on its location, if it is in the retina, it causes blindness. If it is in the cerebellum, it causes ataxia. If it is in the brain or intracranially, it can cause increased eye heat. And apart from hemangioblastoma, it can also have cyst and cystadenoma. The location can be of various sites like renals, adrenals, pancreas, liver, lungs, etc. It can also be in endolymphatic sac of the ear and can cause deafness. So this is about hemangioblastoma, cyst or cystadenoma, and this VHL has increased risk of cancer. 60% of the patients has RCC, and 15% of the patient has pancreatic neuroendocrine tumors. So so they can have cancers. Apart from cancer, they can also have benign endocrine tumors. Benign endocrine tumors are present in 20% of the patients, and the most common one are pheochromocytoma and paraganglioma. This pheochromocytoma and paraganglioma will secrete epinephrine, norepinephrine, so that can causes increased catecholamine in a patient, and that can result in the sympathetic overactivity, and that could be seen in the form of sweating, palpitations, hypertension. It is all due to sympathetic overactivity caused due to the excess catecholamine that is released by these benign endocrine tumors. So this is about VHL. So this is all about few of the important and the must know points regarding the neurocutaneous syndromes. So I just want to tell, we'll revise only important points of each of them, that is neurofibromatosis, two varieties, 1 and 2. In the 2 it is actually a misnomer, it doesn't have neurofibroma, and one you know that Kaplan spot neurofibroma, Irish nodules and frecklings and bare orbit sign, and NF2 you can remember the mnemonic miss me. So NF2 is the Merlin defect, NF1 is neurofibromatosis defect, chromosome associated with NF1 is 17, NF2 is 22. Then tuberous sclerosis, you can remember the next odd number square, the next even number square, and you should remember the walk triad, epiloia and 3A's and 3S, and sites of hamartoma. Then Sturge-Weber, you should know that it's a congenital one, and other name being encephalotrigeminal angiomatosis. And so GNAQ gene is the one which has the sporadic mutation causing the Sturge-Weber syndrome, that you should remember. And Sturge-Weber is not associated with the true brain tumors, and however it has problem like brain ischemia, brain atrophy, and it can cause glaucoma, so that you should remember. Next is VHL. VHL, you remember VHL. So it has H, so hemangioblastoma. So hemangioblastoma and HIF. So once the one more H, that is increased HIF occurs. And you should know that it can have, VHL has increased risk of cancer, RCC being the most common, and the pancreatic neuroendocrine tumor, and also benign endocrine tumors occur which can cause increased catecholamines and the sympathetic overactivity in the patient. So this is all about the neurocutaneous syndrome that I had tried to summarize. Thank you. Hope this video helps you. Bye bye.